Have you heard the news? The shareholder firm that sued Elon Musk and Tesla is expected to ask for billions of dollars in legal fees for what they did. So this is starting to come out in the press. People are starting to talk about this a lot. I want to break it down a little bit so we understand it better. For those of you who saw it, I did a longer video talking about that Delaware decision on Elon Musk, really broke it down. A lot of people haven't gotten into the details. I know it is a 201-page opinion, but a lot of the articles I see are missing the point. That's also here on the YouTube channel. So feel free to go check that out and see what it says. But I want to jump into what is happening with this potential fee for the law firm. Obviously, at some point, there's going to be an actual decision. The judge is going to have to work on these attorney's fees and make a decision. And then there's going to be a lot of press about it. You're going to be ahead of the curve if you're watching this video beforehand. If you're watching it afterhand, you'll understand exactly what's happening. So why are we considering fees for the law firm? Is this common? How can you justify a potentially multi-billion-dollar legal fee to the law firm? And would this decision be different in Texas, right? One of the things we're seeing right now is Elon Musk is looking to move Tesla's corporate headquarters potentially to Texas. I did a video on that as well, also available on the YouTube channel, so you can go check that out. But would we get a different outcome with these attorney's fees in Texas? So let's jump into those questions. Of course, if you're viewing live, feel free to put your questions in. I am getting people commenting on the other videos, which is fantastic. So if you have specific questions or comments, go ahead and drop them too, and I may work them in the future videos if you don't catch this live. By the way, don't put anything confidential in the comments. Other people can see them. Just put general questions. All right. Why is this being considered for this potentially multi-billion-dollar fee? So what these courts look at is the benefit conferred to the corporation or shareholder. So essentially what happened, for the various reasons I broke down in that longer video, this Delaware court has agreed that Elon Musk's pay package was not proper. And we won't go into all the details, but there are a lot of issues with the authorization. So at the end of the day, Tesla potentially saves that same $55.6 billion that Elon Musk is not going to get. So that is a big corporate savings. But of course, in order to do that, they had to have this very complex litigation. Litigation was headed by Greg Varallo. I got to work with Greg early in my career. We were in the same law firm. So we weren't directly on projects together, but we were in the hallways. You know, I saw him, I knew of him. He's a very well-respected lawyer, had a very good career, headed at one point Delaware's largest law firm, which is the law firm I work with him at, and then eventually moved into this new role. So he's a very, very good lawyer and obviously put together great arguments to overcome Tesla's defense and Elon Musk's arguments on this pay package. And you want to incentivize that, right? So one of the things courts need to look at is Tesla potentially, at least in theory, saved us $55.6 billion, which is now available for the company, not going to be paid out in stock. And that means all the other shares are more valuable. So that's a benefit. And you want to encourage this kind of beneficial thing. If somebody's abusing a company, you want to make sure that there are incentives, and that's part of it. And of course, Greg Varallo and his team, they took a risk here, right? They jumped out there. They got into this litigation. They put a lot of time and effort into it. I am sure they worked long hours for this, a lot of preparation for these hearings, and risks. They could have lost as well. They won here. Of course, there may potentially still be an appeal which they need to work through. So this is being considered because we want law firms out there fighting for shareholders. And is this common? That is the next question I have here. This is absolutely common. This is very normal. Now, a lot of people on the cynical side look at this and say, hey, people go out and ask lawyers to do these things because the lawyers jump in because they know they're going to get big legal fees. And there is something to be said for that. And it is normal. And lawyers, one of the reasons they'll take these cases is because they know that the legal fees are potentially coming down the pipeline. So with all of that being said, you do see this come up. Now, the size of this case obviously is very unusual, right? We don't see $55.6 billion cases very commonly in Delaware or elsewhere. How do you justify an award that is so large? Obviously, you want very smart lawyers willing to take these types of cases. And that's one of the things this judge will have to look at when they do the award, right? This was a very complex case, 201-page opinion, which, like I mentioned before, I did break down in that other YouTube video. And so there is a lot of intensity in preparing that and looking at all these prior board meetings, how all the authorizations were done, emails, meetings, timelines, records, right? All this got developed and put on a trial for the judge. But before it got to that point, obviously, Greg Varallo and team were back there working through piles and piles of electronic records and papers and figuring out exactly what happened at Tesla and where it's going to go, right? So you have to justify the fact that they put all that work in there and prepared this case, fought it to a conclusion, and potentially then have conferred this benefit on these stockholders. These stockholders don't have to pay the $55.6 billion. Now, of course, between you and me, I think at some point Elon Musk is going to come up with another way to get himself compensated. So this money is probably not saved for the long term, but in the short term, it's okay, and the money is still there. So there is potentially this benefit. Now, the big question really for a lot of people is, would this decision have been done differently in Texas? And it's very interesting. The first parts of my career were Delaware and Texas. I was a lawyer in Delaware. I went to DC briefly, but then I spent a substantial amount of time in Texas before moving my office to Florida. So I'm very familiar with both Delaware and Texas and the court systems in each. And being a business lawyer, I'm also familiar with that. Would the decisions be different in Texas? Well, here's one thing, and I mentioned this in my other video. Delaware has a dedicated business court. The Court of Chancery really is a business court for the most part. Can potentially hear some other types of cases, but really a dedicated business court. Texas is just getting there, right? September 1, 2024, they will start running a business court. So it's going to take a while for them to get there. So right now, this case would have went to a general civil court in Texas. And that means you would have got a judge that was, dealing with a variety of matters, not just business matters, but maybe other contract claims, other types of stuff coming in to the docket. So they're not going to just be focused on business law cases. Now, when we get the business court up and running in Texas and it gets some depth and some experience, we'll see that more. Of course, we would have pulled a different jurist. We could have got a different jurist in Delaware too, right? There's a number of people sitting on a Delaware Chancery Court. You don't always get the same judge. So we may have got a different judge in Delaware. Any random case that comes in Texas, we might have got a different judge. But I will tell you, the facts exposed in that 201-page opinion in Delaware really made Tesla's internal record keeping look, with a lot to be desired. It's, I would say, almost somewhat amateurish, right? They did not dot the I's, did not cross the T's, did not do things in a way that many companies would do, that a typical Fortune 500 company would do. I could certainly see a Texas judge not being happy with that. And of course, any judge, Texas, Delaware, Wyoming, Nevada, these are other jurisdictions people have thrown out. These are other jurisdictions people like to form businesses in. I can see any of those judges saying, hey, you did a $55.6 billion comp package and you didn't go through the normal I dotting and T crossing that everybody else would do. I can see most judges getting offended by that. And then on the attorney's fee section of this that we're talking about today, I could also see a judge saying, you really conferred a benefit. You saved these stockholders from having to pay out $55.6 billion. So I could see a judge coming back and saying, yes, there's a benefit here. We need to compensate the attorneys. We need to incentivize attorneys to keep bringing these types of cases. Texas courts have many decisions where they compute fees for plaintiffs' counsels and derivatives actions based on the benefit conferred. The similarities between Delaware and Texas are large. A lot of states have looked to Delaware in the formation of their corporate statutes and in the formation of how their courts go, and they cite back to Delaware business cases because Delaware's a leader. And Texas, in a lot of cases, does have very, very similar laws, very, very similar findings. And so, we're not talking about radically different systems here. In fact, I parsed that statute for you guys when I did the video on the case, the 201-page opinion here on the channel. And one of the things we saw is it was the exact same three tests in Delaware and Texas for whether a transaction was properly authorized with an interested director. It's going to be a very similar analysis on whether these legal fees are going to stand, just a different judge. And so that might play to Elon's favor in this hypothetical case of Delaware versus Texas. Maybe in Delaware, you got a dedicated business judge, high level sophistication. Maybe this could have got slipped past a judge in Texas who didn't do a lot of business cases. Maybe they wouldn't have jumped into the nuances, or it could have been even worse, right? It's hard to say where things would have went, but I think this fee for the law firm would very much be a large fee, whether it was in Texas or whether it was in Delaware. So love to hear your thoughts, questions, ideas. Of course, don't put anything confidential in the questions and comments. I do love to see what you're asking. Some of what I'm talking about has been inspired by comments. I'm getting ideas for future videos from the comments, so please continue to join me there. I will reply when I can, and I look forward to speaking with you soon. Thanks for tuning in today. Feel free to share this video with your friends, and if you enjoy it, subscribe so that I can bring you more content in the future. I'll be back with you soon.